Okay, here is a video primarily again for the receivers and quarterbacks, primarily on our passing game. And hopefully it helps. As always, follow up with any questions that you might have for me. Let's start with, let me start with this real quick. I put the hashes on the field and meant to just talk to you about this. Practicing over at the Word Church, we don't have the real markings. I wanted to give you a little bit of information. The football field is basically 54 yards wide. There's a few extra feet or something there, which makes the three segments of the field separated by the hashes and the sidelines all equal and all at about 18 yards. We try to mark those now on the field when we practice, but it's important that you kind of understand the spacing that we're talking about. Also, when we work to the sideline, there's numbers over there on a real field, the 30, the 20, the 10, and so forth. These are approximately in the middle of this. I forget which edge of the number is exactly 9 yards. So you've got an 18-yard segment divided in half. But just kind of a little bit of information for you as we move forward. All right, let's talk about our quick or Quebec passing first. These are three passing concepts that you need to understand from a couple of points of view, because you could be a couple of different places depending on what type of formation we run. First of all three of them are two-man routes, or two-person routes, so that if we run it 2 by 2, it looks one way, and then we go to run a 3 by 1 or a trips situation, it looks similar to the quarterback with some complementary changes in the routes. All right, let's talk about what's similar. All right. If we're running slant in this situation, we'll probably be running it in trips. So very likely in spread trips, we'd have the H, the Z, and then the X out on the line of scrimmage, which would put the Y out on the line of scrimmage in spread trips, and the X on the short side. All right, I've drawn this up approximately on the numbers with the ball on the hash, approximately on the hash, halfway from the tackle to the Z, and then this receiver out on the inside edge of the numbers, approximately. Work with Jimmy or Coach Smith about getting precise in our alignments. All right. The slant concept applies to these two receivers. All right. When we run it to trip side, the outside receiver, and this is true for all three of these Quebec passes, the outside receiver has an outside release fade. If they can beat the cornerback deep, they certainly could get the ball. You have to take an outside release so that the cornerback, in defending you, does not see what's happening in here and be able to come and help right away. All right. The backside receiver, the X in most of these, always has that read route with a chance to run a go, a slant, or a hitch based on the coverage. And I can't stress enough how important it is that we find an X, preferably two, who can win in one-on-one coverage. If they can eliminate this half of the field with one cornerback, it really hampers what we want to do to the rest of the field. If they dare to play you with one cornerback, one defender, I hope that we find a couple of girls who have a real kind of killer instinct and say, we're going to beat you one-on-one. All right? But let's focus in on these two receivers again. The slant is pretty simple. The inside receiver runs that now screen where they back out and set up right about the hash, right about over the top of where the Z was lined up. All right. Let me back up a second. this will normally be paired with an inside run for now the Iowa. So the play would come in to the quarterback at least as Iowa quick check with me, or Quebec check with me. And if they choose to throw the pass, they're going to signal with their hand out to you what route to run. If they don't signal slant hitch or out, you can assume they're running the Iowa, and you could go to our normal rules, which is inside run away from you. You're running now screen, you're blocking now screen, and this receiver would also be blocking down. But because they've seen 7 in the box, all right, we're going to go ahead and throw the ball. If there's 7 in the box, that leaves 2 cornerbacks to cover our widest people and only 2 more defenders to play. Probably something like this, which is why they're throwing to this side. I'm sorry. Let's do it like this. All right. First of all, if they see this alignment with single cover on the X, the quarterback very well may throw it over there. All right. But let's say they like this side of the field for some reason. What we want the Z to do is run their slant, aiming right at that underneath coverage person. If that underneath coverage person attacks or jumps up to stop us from throwing the now screen, you're going to get the ball right now. Stay skinny, run it up the field, make yards after the catch. If the safety drops, or this coverage person drops, could be a safety, could be a linebacker, into the window where we want to throw the slant, you automatically become a blocker because you know we're throwing it there. This is a screen pass behind the line of scrimmage, you can block. Again, if the safety comes up, you run your slant. If the safety drops or stays at 4 or 5 yards depth, you block them. All right? That's the slant concept. All right? It doesn't matter who's there. Right now, this is spread trips. Let's say we wanted to run it in twins trips. This could be the X, the Z, and the H, and now the X has to know to do that. And there could be some other things we do down the road later to change up who lines up where. But for now, any trips side, when we call slant, the slant is executed by these 2 receivers. We got a mandatory outside release go. We got a read route over here. Okay, again, paired with an inside run, so we know there have to be 7 defenders in the box, leaving only 4 to cover our receivers. All right, that's slant. If we run hitch, or if the quarterback signals hitch, and I'll go through those signals with you again in a minute. All right. If she signals hitch, again, mandatory outside release, read route, doesn't change. All right. Inside 2 receivers execute the 2-person concept. And what these 2 receivers are doing on hitch is exactly the same. They're looking for the coverage. If they have 7 yards of green in front of them, they just run a hitch. If they don't have 7 yards of green, so if there's a defender closer to them than 7 yards, they run a fade. All right, I would say that this defender is within 7 yards of the H, so she runs a fade right through that person. And I would say there's nobody within 7 yards of this receiver, so they're going to run a hitch. Now, quarterback, go ahead and read this safety. If the safety decides to jump outside and play the hitch, you got that seam route being run right up the field. H, you better have your eyes around quick, because remember, all the quarterbacks doing on Quebec is catch, step, and throw, so you got to be ready quick. All right. And if this safety carries the H up the field, you got the hitch right there. All right. So that's the hitch concept. Both receivers run a hitch if there's 7 yards or more of green in front of you. If there's less than 7 yards, you run a fade. All right. The last of our Quebec concepts The last of our Quebec concepts is out. All right, and in out, we got a seam route, and we got a 5-yard out. Again, in what I'm looking at right there, quarterback, you would simply read that safety. Again, you chose not to throw this for some reason, so now come over and read this concept over here. Only consider throwing that ball if it's a wide open, easy throw and a matchup that you love. Otherwise, this is where we're working the field. Again, in this situation, and as how I see the defense right now, we would simply read this safety. All right. If the safety didn't cover this seam route, we'd just throw it quickly. If the safety did cover the seam route, we'd have the out running underneath. All right. So that's the slant, hitch, and out in a 3-by-1 situation. Let me see if I can kind of easily show you what happens if it's 2-by-2. Let's say that it is 2-by-2. So let's say that we have called spread doubles. So the H would be gone. Putting the H over here. And now the two men or the two ladies that are running this concept, slant, hitch, or out, are these two receivers. It's called to this side. For now, we're never calling the quick concept to the X side because we want the X to get really great at this read concept. And I want us to take advantage of that. Again, we need great X receivers. Right? The H is now the fourth route or the complementary route instead of the Y who was running that mandatory outside release now. The H is going to basically clear this side of the field for the X and run what we call a splitter right towards the safety and up the field. Now, quarterback, you may look, and right now it looks pretty congested there, but you may look and think nobody's paying attention to the H and pre-snap decide to go there. Otherwise, the H is running through and clearing. The X has got their read route on the backside still. Again, it looks a little cluttered here right now. Assume that if we're running a 2-by-2 formation, it might be more to the middle of the field, but I don't want to draw that all up right here. But now we're running the concept out here. And it's the same three things that we did before, now with different receivers and a different look. All right, let me check the defense real quick. All right, because it is a 7-man box, we're not running the ball. That only leaves 4 people left to defend us. It's very likely that if they see this now, that they could get into something like this, a straight across man-to-man. All right. In which case now, when I see that over there, we can run any of our concepts. All right. If we wanted to run slant over there now, inside receivers running the now screen. All right. Backing out, setting up about over the top of where the Y was. The Y is running their slant with the same rule that we had on from the trips for the inside 2 receiver. If this safety jumps up to cover the now screen, which is likely if it's man-to-man, you run the ball, you run your slant right through there, and we hopefully get you the ball. If for some reason it's not man, or maybe they're switching some type of a combination there and this safety drops to cover the slant, you block the slant and we throw the now screen. Same combination of routes now with different receivers. Hitch, they both have the rule that if they have 7 yards of green, they run a hitch. Looks like this defender's closer than 7 yards. So if there is not 7 yards of green, we run a go route. And it will say that that cornerback is 7 yards off, so we run the hitch. And lastly, we can run the out concept over here. Go route, 5-yard out. Same combination of routes but now executed in 2x2 by these two receivers. Same read route by the X. And now the fourth receiver, instead of being that Y who was all the way out here in trips, running goes, now we have the H in here and kind of running a go, except angling it to the inside. We call it a hash route because they're going up and down the hash. All right, that is our quick passing game. All right, and that's really the whole thing. Quarterbacks get to pick and signal. Let's remind everybody, it's slant, it's hitch, and it's out. For now, we're signaling it to the wide side. For now, we're signaling it to the right. For now, we're signaling it away from the X. For now, and maybe forever, it's paired with an inside run. So they have to have 7 players in the box or they'd be running the ball. Again, if they go ahead and only have 6 in the box, and let's say they put another safety up here, we're running the ball, quarterback back, we'd be running zone away. And just a quick reminder, well, I don't have to erase that. Just a quick reminder, probably be away from a trips. If you have an inside run and no motion, we have some different blocking rules for motion. If you have an inside run and no motion, we're executing a now screen and we're blocking for the now screen. If the defenders drop to play you, we block, we might throw the ball, who knows, right? But if you see the defenders all taken off, and let's say running, because they see the ball carrier with the ball running it that way, you're trying to block them and they're running away from you. Now we become cutoff defenders. Sometimes they call it touchdown alley. Create a seam for that ball carrier to run. We go up and we try to cut somebody off. We go and try to cut somebody off. All right. Again, this player, if they don't get the throw to them, they're going to fake catching the ball, take their hands, tuck it, and run the ball, or run like they have the ball. Okay, that's our Quebec passing. That's really all of it. I don't intend to add anything to that. There may be some wrinkles or some trading of routes, but basically that's what we will use. And I hope again that this video helps. If you have any questions, please email or text me.